Mia's plan to outshine Prince Sion in dance ends up in complete failure. Hoping he'd trip and embarrass himself, but to her surprise, Sion danced flawlessly, leaving Mia flustered. After the dance, she chose to spend time with Prince Abel, who regained a new air of confidence as he was reassured by Mia. Meanwhile, Mia's maid, Anne, had an important mission and also helped rescue Tiona, an outland noble girl trapped by bullies at the top of a tower. After rescuing Tiona with Keithwood's help, Anne decided to act as Mia's arms and legs and upheld Mia's reputation, showing her loyalty and quick thinking, even though Mia's motivations were more about self-preservation.
Just before Tiona was ready to leave, now fully beautifully dressed once more, Keithwood handed her a small note. "I'm terribly sorry to trouble you with this, Lady Rudelbun, but if you don't mind, could you please give this note to Sion-sama?"
Huh? I certainly will.
After nodding slightly, Tiona headed off to the venue. Tiona arrived late, but no one paid her any mind. The reason being that she had appeared just as Mia and Sion were finishing their dance. Their amazing performance drew the attention of the whole venue, and Tiona was able to enter the party without attracting attention. After the dance, Sion was mobbed by a group of girls. Tiona was intimidated at the thought of wading into a group like that, but she took a deep breath, stilled her nerves, and strode in.
Excuse me.
Huh? If I remember correctly, aren't you?
I'm Tiona Ludovan, Your Highness. Keithwood's son told me to give you this.
Did he? Then, if you excuse me. Moving away from the girls who were surrounding him, Sion looked at the note. There was a summary of the incident and the people behind it. It also mentioned the possibility of Mia's involvement, if only out of abundance of caution. Abundance of caution, indeed. That Keithwood. Sometimes he's too careful for his own good. Sion couldn't help but chuckle. Keithwood's job is to broaden Sion's horizon by pointing out possibilities that he's unaware of. He has to be especially aware of the people Sion trusts. Sion didn't think he really suspected Mia's involvement. Heck, I'm pretty sure she's the kind of person that even he couldn't help but be fond of. Nevertheless, Keithwood remained objective, disregarding personal feelings and just trying to provide facts for Sion's consideration. Through his steadfast attitude, one could glimpse a man whose competence stemmed not from natural genius, but dogged diligence, a true workhorse of a man. Wait a second. Sion thought back to the way Mia had declined his offer for a second dance. Perhaps Mia had spotted Tiona during the dance earlier. A single look was probably all she needed to more or less figure out what had happened. Then, in an attempt to have the poor girl at least enjoy the party now that she was here, she entrusted her to him. Normally, Mia might have gone to look after Tiona herself, but at a ball, the simple solution was for a male partner to take the lead. Someone more suitable for me, huh? In other words, there was someone who needed my help. Though the wording was a tad roundabout, the meaning was clear, and it was a request that Sion couldn't refuse. Still, my dear princess, phrasing. Next time, you might wish to consider the nuances of the word suitable. Feeling like he had just found a chink in the armor of perfection that was Mia, Sion couldn't help but break into a grin.
Prince Sion?
My apologies, Lady Rudelbun. Would you be so kind as to accompany me to a dance? On that note, the night of the dance party dawned. The next morning, Mia woke up feeling terrific. She used up a lot of energy last night, and after working up a good sweat, she enjoyed a long, luxurious soaked-in bath. Then, with a pleasant feeling of exhaustion, she fell into a soft bed and slept like a rock until daybreak. It was a perfect night's sleep. She slept so soundly that she found herself fully energized and in great spirits. Humming happily to herself and wondering what she should have for breakfast, Mia strolled into the cafeteria. After sitting down, she watched as Anne went to arrange for her meal. However, she frowned. She noticed a young man approaching Anne. He had rugged features and a sharp gaze. Dressed exquisitely in all black, he was certainly a servant brought in by some student. His demeanor was graceful, elegant, and charming. If he was just a good-looking guy, Mia wouldn't have given him a second thought. The most she would have done was to give Anne a knowing wink and a pat on the back. However, he was the attendant of her sworn enemy, Prince Sion. and that changed things. Worse yet was the fact that he was accompanied by another girl. Her unique features were undeniably those of an ethnic minority within the Empire, and Mia knew her to be Lyra, attendant of Tiona Rudelman. The arrows she pointed at Mia with a hateful look in the previous timeline were still burning to her mind.
What? Why in the moons is Anne talking with them like they're friends?
Mia asked Anne about it when she returned. I was going to tell you later, but... Anne hesitantly began reporting what had happened, and once Mia finished listening to the whole story, Mia didn't make a sound. In fact, she was frozen in place. Her small body slowly tilted to the side, and tilted, and tilted. Mia-sama! Mia toppled over sideways like a log, her face pale as the moon. The crimson flames flickering, the imperial city burning, the voice of people's hatred echoing and echoing, then her own head rolling into the ground. Mia jumped with a scream. It had been a long time since she had dreamed of her execution, and the dreadful sensation of death yet lingered. She was in a bed in the school infirmary, soaked through with sweat. Her wet clothes stuck uncomfortably to her skin, and she desperately wanted to take a bath immediately. But now was hardly the time for that. Anne was standing next to her with a worried look, and Mia quickly gave her instructions. The first thing Mia did was to deport the 4 attendants directly involved in the incident back to the Empire. Shortly after, the students who were the masters came to protest. She shot them a harsh glance.
This is it. It's make or break.
She understood her situation. One wrong step here and she'd be in dire straits. No. To be more precise, she knew it. After waking up in the infirmary and sending off Anne, she checked the bloody diary she had brought with her. A couple pages in, she found that there was indeed a mention of the incident of Tiona's imprisonment. She only had superficial information when she wrote it and had no idea that such an incident had taken place behind the scenes. This wasn't something she could handle. Withholding punishment would almost certainly incur the wrath of Rafina, and neither Prince Sion or Tiona would think very highly of her either. Therefore, it was necessary to condemn them properly, but the problem was their masters. They denied any involvement, but from Mia's point of view, they were far from innocent. In her opinion, they all dipped at least their toes in, if not the whole lower half of their bodies. However, if you asked if they were definitely involved, there would be no proof to state that they were. Normally, if the attendants were commoners, it is impossible for them to imprison a noble's daughter without an order. The problem was that all the perpetrating attendants were themselves nobles. They might not be the heir of their family titles, but they did grow up in noble houses in the central capital and were respected by the people. They must have had a good amount of pride.
It is easy to tell, given that they were wearing personal belongings with the imperial crest on them.
If Mia was being honest, the thing that she wanted to yell in their faces was something along the lines of, "If you're going to do something stupid, at least hide the damn crest. That way, at least people wouldn't know where they're from." In any case, it's no wonder that these proud people didn't like the idea of Tiona, a noble from the countryside, attending the welcome party instead of them. Unlike their masters, the attendants had motives.
Your Highness, we find this too difficult to accept.
Why do that to our attendants just because all they did was lock up some backwater noble girl for a little while? It was a protest in accordance with the beliefs of Tearmoon nobility. The central faction aristocrats were allowed to be as rude as they wanted to the commoners as well as the nobles from remote regions.
You have no idea how much hatred you're sowing.
Mia regarded them not with hate, but pity. After all, Mia herself had been equally ignorant until she found herself thrown into prison. It was the kind of thing that she never realized without hitting rock bottom, and yet, once she did, it was far too late.
To sow the seeds of hatred is to reap their fruits. I could lecture them. No, I can tell it'll go right over their heads. I see. I understand what you're trying to say. In fact, it might very well be true. If this were the Empire, that is.
What?
You guys need to think about who controls the school.
Mia had a plan. If she condemns them based on her own values, their anger will go towards her. In order to avoid that, she decided to shift the blame to someone else. That's right, what better person to take the blame than the Academy's reign figure of authority, Rafina Orcabeluga?
Rafina is an honorable person. Do you really think she will condone such thuggery towards one of the precious students of the school?
She took a moment to pause and close her eyes.
And I must admit, I'm not a big fan of that kind of thinking either. Using the power you have to abuse those weaker than you, which part of that can be called noble?
There was actually some truth in that. Mia, who had suffered at the hands of the Revolutionary Army, didn't want to do the same thing as them. Violence hurts the body, and the reason hurts the soul. Both felt terrible. She didn't want to be on the receiving end, and she didn't want to be the perpetrator either.
Normally, I would require all of you to take responsibility for this incident and surrender your student's status. However, I find such treatment overly cruel. Mia-sama! For this time only, I shall ask a personal favor of Rafina-sama and intervene for your sake.
She made clear that this act of kindness awaited repayment. This way, she'd be able to punish them while simultaneously making them feel indebted to her.
I sure hope with this, things will settle down and everyone will just move on.
Feeling particularly drained by the exchange, Mia nevertheless dragged her tired self out of the room to go request an audience with Rafina. Trying very hard to ignore the storm of beats in her stomach, Mia walked into a classroom during lunch break.
Excuse me, Rafina-sama. May I have a word with you?
Oh, Mia-san, what can I do for you? Rafina looked up with the same smile she always has on her face. But that didn't put Mia at ease. For her, who is described as a saint, smiling is a default state. She could casually cut Mia off while wearing a smile. One could never be too careful around her.
There is something I'd like to discuss with you.
Mia fearfully looked up at Rafina. Is that so? In that case, why don't you join me in my room? I was just about to have lunch. Rafina guided Mia to her room with the same gentle voice she usually uses. Once they entered her room, she suddenly clapped her hands once and turned to Mia. Oh, I just remembered. Thank you for the gifts. The staff will love them very much. Since Mia hadn't received a report from Anne about it, she smiled back, both out of relief that Rafina seemed to be in a good mood, as well as to hide the fact that she had absolutely no idea what gift she was referring to.
Thank the moons. At this rate, I might actually survive this encounter.
After they were seated and the food was lined up on the table, Mia slowly turned to Rafina and without any hesitation, humbly bowed her head.
I'm very sorry for what happened.
This was a potential guillotine moment. Her ego could wait. Please raise your head, Princess Mia. It wasn't your doing, was it?
No, but as Tearmoon's princess, the actions of the imperial nobles are also my responsibility,
said Mia while trying to sound as earnest as possible. It took some effort, because in the back of her mind, she was thinking,
Of course not. It's got nothing to do with me. I didn't even know it happened.
I see. Then, as for the disciplinary action, what did you have in mind?
I have already ordered for the attendants who were directly involved to be sent back to Tearmoon. As for the students, their involvement is unclear, so they have been placed under house arrest.
Isn't that a bit lenient? The cold stare made Mia shudder. Indeed, she regretted not giving a harsher punishment. Alas, it was far too late to reverse her decision. At this point, she had no choice but to argue the merit of her lax sentence. It would appear, Princess Mia, that you're a very merciful person.
Merciful moons! What should I do? I'm in so much trouble.
Just like a cat being watched by a hungry lion that just woke up, Mia tried her best to find a way out. Unfortunately, having already hit peak mental performance, her already fried brain refused to serve up any ideas. Just then, she suddenly saw the bowl of soup in front of her. A piece of something yellow protruded from its surface. It was her old friend, the yellow moon tomato. The face of the imperial chef came to her mind. The face of the stubborn man who devised a way to cook the yellow moon tomatoes that Mia hated into something she liked.
Yellow moon tomatoes. How ironic that their pungency often leads to their wastage. Yet remorse for this sin only comes after there's nothing left to eat.
She recalled the first time she tasted them after her transmigration. The thought that she previously thrown away such meticulously prepared food, and all the care and dedication that went into it made her grimace. It was a stark reminder of how terrible a person she had been.
Wait, why am I trying to escape from reality? That is not the time for that.
In other words, you're saying that sometimes people do bad things because they aren't aware they are wrong?
Pardon?
Since there was no significant damage, the victim won't seek further compensation. Of course, I see now. That's why you sent your most trusted retainer, Anne. Rafina's attitude changed visibly. She smiled again, but this time it was much gentler than before. Punishment serves two purposes. One is to ensure justice in order to comfort the victim's mind. The second is to encourage the perpetrator to reflect on their actions. This time, thanks to Anne's effort, the damage was kept to a minimum. In this case, we should encourage the perpetrators to reflect on what happened, after which they will hopefully learn and mature. Certainly for a school, that looks like a more suitable way of punishment. Mia jumped on it.
Yes, it surely does.
She wasn't sure what that was all about, but she jumped anyways, as long as she could get out of this predicament. Mia-san? Rafina took Mia's hand once again. You have my honest admiration and respect. There is a profound mercy in you. It pushes you to seek the redemption of even the wicked, and it is something that I do not have. I see now what they refer to you as the great wisdom of the Empire.
I'm honored to hear that.
Mia gave a tense smile. She was not comfortable with that kind of admiration. And well, you see, about that.
Sweet moons, there's more. What now?
Resisting the urge to dash out of the room right then and there, Mia kept listening. Rafina's next words, however, took her completely by surprise. Would you like to be my friend?
Would I... what?
And on that day, Mia became friends with the school president Rafina. After parting with Rafina and returning to her room, Mia took the time to heap a ton of praise upon Anne. Then, before the poor maid had even recovered from being hit with the sudden outpouring of gratitude, she had already been dragged out of town in the name of rewarding her for her efforts. Thus ensued Mia and Anne's quest to try all the sweets in town. But that is a story for another time.
This is it for this video. We will continue with the story of the Guillotine Princess in the next episode. This was Brian and Marco from Jobless Weebs. Matinee.